Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Ventura, before the break, we were talking about Craigslist. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes.
In what cities did you respond to ads on Craigslist?
In New York, I think was the main.
At whose direction did you respond to ads on Craigslist?
At Sean's direction.
When you responded to ads on Craigslist, whose contact information did you use?
I used my own.
Did you use your own name?
No.
What name would you use?
Jackie Starr.
Would you use your own phone number?
I would have to use my own phone number. Yep.
You also mentioned Backpage. What is Backpage?
Backpage is a similar thing to Craigslist. Ads.
Did you respond to ads on Backpage as well?
I did.
At whose direction?
Sean's.
Also, before we broke, you testified about a company called Cowboys for Angels. Do you remember that testimony?
Yeah,
Who typically communicated with Cowboys for Angels?
I did. I communicated with a gentleman named Garen.
Who, if anyone, directed you to communicate with Garen?
Sean.
And how did you typically communicate with Garen?
Usually through texts, occasionally a call.
When you would reach out to Garen, how much notice would you give him that you needed an escort?
It usually wasn't that much notice. It would be like, somebody today.
What else, if anything, would you tell Garen during those communications?
I'd tell him what city we were in because we would basically send escorts based off the city we were in. Time, location, all of that.
Who were some of the most frequent escorts?
Most frequently used would be Jules, Dave, Johnny. I think those were the main ones.
And we just looked at 6 photos of escorts. Are those all the escorts hired for freak-offs or just some of them?
Just some of them.
And we talked about travel a little bit with Dave. How, if you know, would travel be arranged for other escorts?
For other escorts, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of them travel, but there was one particular trip that we took to Ibiza, and one of Garen's guys flew out there. So I think the travel was probably arranged by them.
When, if ever, did you book escort travel?
Occasionally, like if we absolutely needed to. It wasn't all the time.
Before booking any escort travel, what, if any, conversation would you have with Sean about booking travel?
I mean, he would ask me like what we were doing, if we were flying somebody in, who's available, and from there talk about how to get them there if they weren't in the town or they weren't in the city.
What would he say about when you say he talked about how to get them there? What would he say?
Do they need to fly in? Do they need to travel, or are they here? Just basic questions.
You also mentioned with respect to Dave that Sean's travel agent was sometimes involved. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What, if any, role did you have in communicating with Sean's travel agent?
I definitely reached out to his travel agent. I believe we just acted as if it was a new employee or somebody that was being interviewed or something.
When you say we acted, who are you referring to?
Sean and I.
And when you say acted as a new employee, who would you say was the new employee?
Dave, for instance. If we were going to have the travel agent book his travel, or oh, I have a new staff member, we have somebody new coming to visit for a meeting, so that wouldn't be speculated.
Why was it necessary to tell the travel agent that Dave, for example, was a new employee?
It was important to Sean not to have his identity known.
Speculation.
That's sustained.
What, if any, discussions did you have with Sean about communicating with the travel agent?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
It's okay. You were talking about reaching out to the travel agent. Did you discuss the reach out with Sean?
Yes.
What did you talk about?
I mean, it was by his direction, so we would discuss when they would arrive and when we would start.
You testified earlier about using some drugs at freak-offs. Do you remember that testimony?
Yep.
And specifically, we talked about using ecstasy at the first freak-off. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you use drugs at other freak-offs?
Yes.
How many?
All kinds.
Let me rephrase that question, Miss Ventura. How many freak-offs did you use drugs at?
Oh, all of them.
Why did you use drugs at every freak-off?
For me, it was dissociative and numbing. I couldn't imagine myself doing any of that without having some sort of buffer or just way to not feel it for what it really was, which was emotionless and sex with a stranger that I didn't want to be having sex with.
Who else besides you used drugs during freak-offs?
Sean did, and occasionally the escort, but I wasn't always clear on that.
Were there any freak-offs where you did not use drugs?
No, not that I remember, no.
You talked earlier about using ecstasy at the first freak-off. What other drugs, if any, did you use at freak-offs?
At freak-offs, marijuana, ketamine, GHB, sometimes mushrooms, just whatever the drug of choice was at that point.
Who provided the drugs for freak-offs?
Sean,
When, in relation to the session starting, would Sean provide you with the drugs?
before, sometimes an hour before, sometimes before we even got there, somebody would drop drugs off to me where I was.
When you say somebody would drop drugs off to you, who dropped drugs off to you?
A staff member, security assistant, whoever was available.
When you say staff, whose staff dropped off drugs to you?
Sean's staff.
And whose security dropped off drugs for you?
Sean's security.
How did you know how far in advance to take the drugs?
I would ask.
Who would you ask?
Sean.
Ms. Gavin, can you please pull up Government Exhibit B244 for identification for the court and the parties only? If you could pull up page 1 and page 2 side by side. Ms. Ventura, do you recognize the document that's marked Government Exhibit B244?
Yes.
What generally is this document?
It's a text message between me and Sean.
Is it a fair and accurate text message between you and Sean?
Yes.
The government offers Government Exhibit B244.
May I have one moment?
You may.
No objection.
The exhibit will be admitted.
Ms. Gavin, can you please publish the exhibit for the jury? Ms. Ventura, focusing first on the left-hand side of the page. Who are the participants in this conversation?
Sean and I.
And focusing on the right-hand side of the screen at the very top, what is the date of the first blue bubble?
April 6th, 2013.
For a few pages, I'm going to read the gray bubbles, and you read the blue bubbles. Can you start with that first blue bubble?
About to touch down. Call me as soon as you hit. I'm happy. Call APT. RM in London, 5301 Sally Richards.
So pausing there before we go on, what is your understanding of what Sean's text, RM in London, Sally 5301 Sally Richards means?
That the room number is 5301 and Sally Richards is the name under the room.
At what hotel is the room at?
It says the London.
So continuing on, if you can, with the blue bottom at the page.
It says K. Bags came out that quick.
Ms. Gavin, can we please turn to page 3 and 4?
All set. What Tim do I tell him?
What do you think Tim is supposed to say?
Time.
3 a.m. Who?
Punisher. His dad dies. Punisher will come at 6. Died.
Pausing you there. Is this the same Punisher whose photograph we looked at a few moments ago?
Yes.
So continuing down.
Yeah.
We forgot about Daniel.
He's like having a baby or something. He hit me a little while back.
So pausing you there, the reference to the name Daniel, is that the same Daniel we just looked at a photograph of?
Yes.
Continuing on.
What you think Garen just hit me back? We've had him before. White boy named William. So him or Daniel, I'm good with whatever. Checking on Daniel's availability.
Ms. Gavin, can you turn to the next 2 pages, please?
Can't buy Astro, it's too much. I'm buying crazy stuff. Okay, LOL. I got it, LOL. LOL, cool. When should I take the thing? Daniel isn't hitting back.
Just pausing you there to talk about 2 text messages. When you say you can't buy Astro, what does Astro refer to?
The lubricant, Asterglide.
And the next blue bubble, when it says LOL cool, when should I take the thing? What does the thing refer to?
The thing refers to the drugs, ecstasy or MDMA.
Continuing on.
Okay, so book other through Garen. Want me to hit Garen? All set. When shall I take it? Where is it? When will you be there?
Pausing there, what are you talking about taking in that text message?
The drugs. Like, when do I take it?
In the next message from Sean says, it's in med bag. What's the med bag?
The med bag is where Sean kept his medicine. It's a Louis Vuitton bag and occasionally kept other drugs in there.
When you say other drugs, what other drugs are you referring to?
2 ecstasy, MDMA more party drugs.
So can you continue reading the blue, please?
Yes. Did you book with Garen? Yes, 3 a.m., the white guy. Do you want to take now and push up to 2:45?
In that message, what is your understanding of what Sean is asking you of what you want to take now?
The drugs and to push up the time of the escort?
To push up the time for earlier?
Yeah, to push it up earlier.
Ms. Gavin, can we turn to the next 2 pages, please? So continuing on.
Push up to 2:45 or I can. No, that's 45 minutes. You said you'll be here in 20. I haven't even seen you. Damn.
When you say no, that's in 45 minutes. You say you'll be here in 20. I haven't even seen you. Damn. Why did you say that?
Because I wanted to see Sean before we started doing anything.
Did you want to see Sean before you started taking drugs?
Yeah, I wanted to just see him before all of this.
So continuing to read.
LOL, I'm ready. Did you get orange pill? No, you told me not to take. Can you take now? It's the orange in the 5-HTP bottle. Okay. I took mine. Okay, getting now. I'm flying. Meet me. Orange or yellow?
Pausing you there, when Sean says, I'm flying, meet me, what is your understanding of what I'm flying means?
He's high.
And when you say orange or yellow, what does Sean respond?
Orange.
At the bottom of the message, what does Sean say?
Have a drink, too.
Ms. Gavin, we can take that down. Ms. Ventura, if you didn't take drugs before reaching the location of the freak-off, at what point would you take drugs when you reach the location?
Immediately after, or when I actually got with Sean.
And relative to when an escort would arrive, when did you typically take drugs?
Before.
In addition to taking drugs at the beginning of the freak-off, how often did you take drugs during the freak-off?
All the time.
How did you get more drugs?
If we ran out, we would call people, friends or drug dealers or whoever at the time.
Backing up a little, when you said you took drugs all the time throughout the freak-off, approximately how frequently would that be?
During a freak-off or just, sorry?
No problem. How long would the high lap typically last if you took, for example, ecstasy?
Like 3 to 4 hours, and then would take more because the sessions were quite long.
So if you took ecstasy, would you typically need to take more ecstasy every few hours when the high would run out?
Yeah.
And when that would happen, how would you get more ecstasy to take?
We either had it or would have it brought to the room.
And who had the ecstasy in the room?
Sean.
And if more drugs needed to be brought to the room, how would you get more drugs?
Either he would contact or I would make contact with his contact to bring more.
Who would you contact for additional drugs, if anyone?
Drug dealers, friends, assistants, whoever had at that point.
And when you say assistants, whose assistants would be contacted?
Sean's.
When you decided to take more drugs during the freak-off, when the high was wearing off, why did you take more drugs?
For me to just remain high and not, be present with the experience.
Why did you not want to be present with the experience?
Because it was something I hated doing.
Circling back on bringing additional drugs, if you contacted the individuals you discussed, were you present when anyone dropped off additional drugs?
Sometimes, but it was a really brief thing.
Who brought additional drugs to freak-offs?
Again, friends, whoever had the hookup of the drug of the moment. So that could be a drug dealer, could be a friend, could be an assistant, anyone of Sean's, because I didn't have any of those things.
You testified earlier that ecstasy is typically a pressed pill. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
How does ecstasy make you feel?
it's a euphoric feeling. I don't really know what's in it, the pressed pill. You're more sensitive, you're more aroused, you even just feel more sexual, I would say.
You also mentioned MDMA. What does MDMA look like?
It's like a crystallized drug, and you can crush it up and turn it into powder and ingest it.
How would you take MDMA?
Put it in a drink, usually.
How does MDMA make you feel?
Very similar to ecstasy, just kind of euphoric. Everything feels light and nice, and yeah,
When, if ever, did taking drugs make you feel sick?
often. I used to get sick a lot. My stomach used to not agree well with ecstasy especially, but MDMA as well.
How often would you get sick from taking MDMA or ecstasy?
Almost every time. Like before the actual high hit, I would feel like vomiting. It was usually like a normal thing.
Would you vomit or would you just feel nauseous?
I would actually vomit, yeah.
Did Sean know about the effects that ecstasy and MDMA had on you?
Yeah.
How?
Because he would see me in the bathroom, or I would tell him, so he would just know.
What, if anything, would Sean say when you got sick from MDMA or ecstasy?
He didn't say much, but if we were in the freak-off, he would be encouraging me to get up and continue on with it in that condition.
When you say continue on with it, what are you referring to?
Continue the freak-off. Continue the intercourse even though I felt like vomiting, or that I was.
Did you want to continue intercourse when you felt like vomiting?
No.
Besides ecstasy and MDMA, what, if any, other drugs were used at freak-offs?
I said cocaine. GHB, ketamine, marijuana, mushrooms.
How does ketamine make you feel?
Ketamine for me is dissociative. Like you can be there, but not mentally be there at all.
And how does GHB make you feel?
I would say that GHB makes you feel kind of drunk, a little bit tipsy.
How about cocaine? How does cocaine make you feel?
Cocaine makes my heart race. I was never a huge fan.
You also mentioned mushrooms. How do mushrooms make you feel?
They're psychedelics, so you can see things. I feel like the walls come alive.
What does that mean, the walls come alive?
Everything has life to it when you're taking those kind of drugs, like psychedelics.
Have you ever used the phrase, the turn up?
Yes.
What have you used that to refer to?
To drugs, to party.
And of the drugs we've discussed, what are drugs that you would take to party?
Ecstasy and MDMA would be the main ones.
And how, if at all, did taking the drugs we just discussed assist in sexual arousal?
They always did. Would it be okay to take a quick break?
Your Honor, is that okay?
Of course. It's 4 o'clock. Let's come back at 4:10.
Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
Ms. Ventura, before we broke, we were talking about using drugs at freak-offs. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes.
And you testified about sometimes contacting people if you ran out of drugs at freak-offs. Do you remember that?
Yes.
When you reached out to a contact for more drugs, how did you know who to reach out to?
Sean would tell me who to reach out to exactly.
Okay. Earlier, you described the term session, referring to all of the sex acts with the escort. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Did the sessions follow a similar pattern at most freak-offs?
Yes.
And how did you know what the pattern was?
It was established pretty early on in doing the freak-offs that Sean enjoyed a lot of conversation or describing, usually started with oil and touching and went to oral sex, and then eventually turned into intercourse. It was like a gradual process.
And is that the same pattern that was typically followed in the session?
Yeah,
Who decided what that pattern was?
Sean did. I often would try to speed it up if anyone wasn't really paying attention.
Approximately how many sessions would you have with one escort during a freak-off?
I would say at least 2 to 3. But a freak-off could be 3 to 4 different men.
And how is it determined how many sessions would be had with any one escort?
It was based off the high and just how things were moving.
Did you ever want to have additional sessions with an escort?
No.
Who, if anyone, would tell you to have additional sessions with an escort?
Objection form.
I can rephrase, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm sorry.
You may.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Ventura, you just testified you did not want to have additional sessions with an escort.
I hated it.
Did you have any additional sessions with escorts during freak-offs?
Sometimes, yes.
Why?
Because Sean would want to do more, go longer, finish up strong, as he would say.
You also testified that there were sometimes 3 to 4 escorts at a freak-off. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Were there any occasions where there was more than one escort present for one session?
Yes.
Approximately how many times was that?
That, I don't know the exact number, but definitely more than once.
Did you want more than one escort to be present at a session?
No, it was already enough managing one additional person.
And when more than one escort was present, how did the sex acts proceed?
It was very like porn.
What do you mean by that?
It was just, I was an object, being heavily objectified by men in that scenario.
You talked about managing an additional escort. What did you mean by managing?
Just having to be the only female in the room, like with the sexual stuff. It just having to entertain one more person, make sure one more person is satisfied. Yeah.
During these sessions, where was Sean physically relative to you and the escort?
If he wasn't involved, he would be like just outside the room, kind of covered up, not seen. You could just hear his voice, or in the corner. Yeah, if he was involved though, he would be right next to us.
And when you say involved, are you referencing he would be a part of this sex as you discussed earlier?
Yeah, with me.
If Sean was in the corner of the room, what was he generally doing there?
He was generally masturbating and just talking.
What kinds of things did he say?
He would just ask me like how it felt, like what it looked like, how it made me feel. This is so awkward.
You also mentioned sometimes Sean would be outside the room? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah.
How frequently did that happen?
I mean, it varied. No real number.
When Sean was outside the room during a freak-off, what, if any, conversations did you have with Sean before it started about where he would be?
We didn't really. I guess on occasions there was like a couple of occasions where he said he wanted to watch from a different room, or he would set up like my phone and his phone on a FaceTime so that he could watch while he wasn't like present in the actual room. So I was still expected to do the same thing even though he wasn't there.
So on the occasion when Sean was out of the room, what did you and the escort typically do?
If Sean could see me on the FaceTime, I was still doing the same thing. So talking and having this sexual encounter with the escort. But if he was just out of the room and not paying attention, I would stop.
How would you know if Sean was out of the room and not paying attention?
I would just know that you can't hear him, or he didn't call, he's not paying attention.
During freak-offs, what difficulty, if any, did escorts have in getting or maintaining erections?
It was actually pretty frequent with people that we didn't know well. They would express it like it's every time Sean would talk, it would throw them off. Or if he moved a candle, or, just was distracting, I guess.
And what did Sean do when escorts were having trouble with erections?
He would give them a pep talk. At the end, they definitely didn't get paid the normal amount. I know that.
How do you know that?
Because he would tell me, and he would tell them as well. It wasn't really a secret.
When you say he, who is he?
Sean.
Were there any occasions when Sean offered the escorts drugs like Viagra?
Yeah.
And who else besides escorts did Sean offer Viagra to?
He offered it to me before.
And what did he say about you taking Viagra?
That it has the same effect on women, just sensitivity.
Did you take the Viagra that he offered you?
I did.
And how did you feel?
Sensitive and engorged.
Did you want to take the Viagra?
No. No, I didn't.
When escorts were having trouble getting erect, what, if anything, did you observe affected their inability to get erect?
Like I said before, just a distraction as seeing Sean move around, maybe just hearing his voice. It's quite recognizable. Any distractions there, really. Some of the men would actually just say that, like having someone else in the room was just disturbing for them. It made them uncomfortable.
Were there any distractions that you observed other than Sean's voice?
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point, cumulative and it's straining. Relevance.
I'm sorry, the last part of it I missed.
Relevance.
Okay, I'll sustain the objection and you can maybe rephrase the question.
Sure. After the end of the session, what would you and Sean do next?
The end of an entire session, or
Just one session within a freak-off.
we would hang out and take more drugs with each other.
After a session, would you ever have sex with Sean?
Yeah.
And where would you have sex with Sean after the session?
In the room outside of where the session was, separate room.
You mentioned earlier today that freak-offs were video recorded. Do you recall that testimony?
Yep.
How were they recorded?
In the beginning, they were on video cameras, like the ones with the small tapes, then eventually phones, iPads, computers.
Whose devices were used to record freak-offs?
His devices and my own, Sean's and my own.
Approximately when did freak-offs start being recorded?
Pretty early on, within the first year.
Who, if anyone, proposed recording freak-offs?
I wouldn't say there was a proposal, just started happening.
How did it start happening?
Sean brought out a camera and set it up, and that's what happened.
Did you want to be recorded?
No. I remember feeling insane at first. And then he explained to me that it's for him for afterwards. So, yeah.
Did you ever watch the videos again?
Yes.
When would you watch the videos again?
I would watch them with Sean afterwards usually when we were having intercourse, but I also, if I saw them and I was on my own, I was deleting them.
You mentioned that some of these videos were recorded on some of your devices?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
Why were your devices used?
Because they were there, no real reason.
Did you want these videos to be on your devices?
No.
If you saw videos on your devices, what did you do?
Delete them.
Who set up the recording equipment during freak-offs?
Sean, if he wanted me to move it, I would move it.
How would you know that he wanted you to move it?
He would tell me.
Whose idea was it to use your devices?
It was Sean's idea.
Were you always successful? Why did you delete the videos that you found on your devices?
Humiliating. Disgusting. I never wanted anyone ever see me like that. It was just not okay for me, and I felt like it was just tossed around. Like the idea of it was tossed around like it was nothing. Yeah.
The idea of what was tossed around like nothing?
Objectifying me and putting me in these really compromising, gross positions with strangers that yeah.
You also testify that Sean's devices were sometimes used to record freak-offs. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you ask Sean to do with the videos?
I would frequently ask him to delete videos because he had his assistants and staff members would have access to his computers and phones.
To your knowledge, did Sean delete the videos that were on his devices?
I don't know.
Were there times when you saw videos even after Sean said he deleted them?
Yes, and I would delete them.
How often did that happen?
On occasion. It wasn't all the time, but enough.
Miss Ventura, when, if ever, did you leave a freak-off before it was over?
When I was literally just trying to go home.
What do you mean by that?
There was an instance in Los Angeles where it got violent, and I chose to leave.
Where were you in Los Angeles?
I was at the Century City, Intercontinental Century City.
And what happened when you chose to leave?
When I chose to leave, I grabbed what I could, and I got out. And Sean followed me to the hallway before the elevators and grabbed me up, threw me on the ground, kicked me, tried to drag me back to the room. He took my stuff. Yeah.
Miss Ventura, I'm going to start at the beginning of that incident.
Okay.
Strike that. Ms. Gavin, can you please pull up for identification for the court and the parties Government Exhibit B625? Can you please also put up page 2 side by side? Ms. Ventura, do you recognize the document at B625?
Yes.
What do you recognize it to be?
A text message between me and Sean?
Is it a true and accurate text message between you and Sean?
Yes.
The government offers Government Exhibit B625.
Can I have one moment, please?
You may.
Nil objection.
B625 will be admitted.
Ms. Ventura, focusing you on the top of page 1, Ms. Gavin, could you blow up that top section? Who are the participants in this chat?
That's me and Sean.
Ms. Gavin, can you take that down? Can you blow up the bubble on page 2, please? What's the date of this message?
March 5th, 2016.
And what event, if anything, did you have at or around March of 2016?
I had my first big movie premiere.
And in relation to March 5th, when was that premiere?
That premiere was on the following Monday or Tuesday, so this was on a Friday, I believe.
And sorry, Ms. Gavin, can you take that down and put pages 2 and 3 side by side? Ms. Ventura, directing your attention to the first message on page 2. Who is that message from?
From me.
I'm sorry.
Oh, 2?
On the page to the left, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's from Sean.
Okay, and what does that message say?
Thanks. So what you gonna do so I can plan the rest of my night?
And when Sean asked you, so what you gonna do so I can plan the rest of my night, what was your understanding of what Sean was asking you?
I mean, my understanding after the time passed was that he wanted to have a freak off or do something along those lines.
Turning to the next page, and Ms. Gavin, can you blow up the green message at the top, please? How do you respond, Ms. Ventura?
I say, baby, I want to SO so bad, but I don't want to myself up. What am I to do?
What does FO stand for?
Freak off.
When you say, baby, I want to FO so bad, but I don't want to myself up, what did you mean by that?
There's a lot in that little line, but I definitely didn't want to mess myself up, my body, up for my premiere by partying, but I was telling him that I wanted to have an FO with him.
And why did you tell him you wanted to have an FO even if you didn't want to mess up your body by partying?
Honestly, it was like a little bit of damage control ahead. I personally felt like if I sort of initiate or go along with creating this night, that my premiere wouldn't be ruined. I don't know why.
What were you worried would happen at your premiere if you didn't have a freak off with Sean before the premiere?
He would have just made it miserable for me. I never really had the chance to or the opportunity to enjoy the things that I had worked really hard on. So it just felt like I was just trying to play a balancing act a bit.
I think you mentioned damage control. What did you mean by damage control?
If I pleased him with a freak off, then my premiere would run smoothly. That's how I looked at it.
And Ms. Gavin, can you pull that down? Ms. Ventura, directing your attention to the text message on the bottom in green.
Mm-hmm.
Can you blow it out, Ms. Gavin? Ms. Ventura, what does this message say?
It says, I'm going to BOA quickly to see Erin because I didn't get to see her, and we can ask Son. I don't want you thinking I don't want to.
When you say, I don't want you thinking I don't want to, what are you referring to?
To the freak off.
And why did you say that?
Because I didn't want him thinking I didn't want to. That would be a problem.
Why would that be a problem?
Because I knew that he wanted, and, I knew the nuanced conversation. I understood it differently.
So turning to the hotel, I believe you testified earlier that this was at the Intercontinental in Century City?
Yes.
Okay. Inside the hotel room at a high level, can you describe to the jury what happened?
Inside the hotel room, we were having a freak off. And is it okay to say who was there?
Yes.
Jules was one of the escorts, and in the middle of it, there was a lot of drinking, there was a lot of partying, but in the middle of it, I'm not sure what happened, but I got hit by Sean, and I had a black eye. And at that point, all I could think about was getting out of there safely. I had my premiere, and I didn't want to mess it up, so I left.
At what point in a freak off did Sean hit you?
It was in between sessions, so we weren't in the room with the escort.
Was Jules still present in the overall hotel suite?
Yes, he was.
When Sean hit you?
Yes.
After that happened, after Sean hit you, what happened next?
After he hit me, and I saw the result of it, I knew I had to get out. So when he was distracted, I don't know exactly what he was doing. He was either in the shower or on the phone. I just grabbed my stuff and ran out as fast as I could.
And where were you headed when you ran out of the room?
I was headed home to my apartment.
What happened next?
I made it to the elevators. I got my sneakers on. And then the next thing I knew, I was just thrown to the ground. Yeah, it was really fast, thrown to the ground.
You said you got your sneakers on when you got to the elevator. Where were your sneakers before?
My sneakers, I think, were in my bag. I just ran out without any shoes.
Why did you run out without any shoes?
Faster.
You said you were thrown down in the elevator lobby. Who threw you down?
Sean. He grabbed me by the back of my neck and my hoodie and just threw me to the ground.
And in the interaction in the elevator lobby, what kind of things was Sean saying to you?
It's a little fuzzy to remember.
Well, I don't want you to speculate, so let's pull up some exhibits. Ms. Gavin, can you please pull up Government Exhibit 10C-104 in evidence? If you could just pause it at the first second. Ms. Ventura, do you recognize this hallway?
Yes, that's the Century City Intercontinental hallway.
Okay, Ms. Gavin, can you please play until 14 seconds? Ms. Ventura, in which direction are you walking in this video?
I'm walking toward the elevator.
Sorry, I skipped a step. Who is in this video?
That's me.
Okay, Ms. Gavin, can you play until 33 seconds? Pausing there. Who's depicted on the screen at 33 seconds?
That's Sean.
And in which direction is Sean heading?
Same as me, toward the elevator.
What is Sean wearing in this video?
Towel and socks.
Ms. Gavin, can you please take this exhibit down and pull up 10C103? Can you please play until 29 seconds, please? Actually, pausing there first. Ms. Ventura, do you recognize what's depicted here in 10C103?
Yes, that's the elevator area.
Is that at the Intercontinental?
That is at the Intercontinental, yeah.
Ms. Gavin, can you play until 29 seconds? Who is depicted in this frame?
It's me.
And can you play a few more seconds, Ms. Gavin? Pause there. Who is behind you now?
Sean.
Can you play until 56 seconds? Pausing there, Ms. Ventura, in which direction is Sean pulling you at the end of that clip?
He's pulling me toward the room.
And earlier in that clip, do we see what you described earlier of being thrown to the ground?
Yes.
How many times had Sean thrown you to the ground like that before?
Too many to count, I don't know.
And when you were thrown to the ground at the Intercontinental, what did you do?
I, at that moment, covered my face and just stayed there.
Why did you cover your face?
Because I didn't want him to do any more damage than he had already done.
Why did you just stay on the ground?
Because it felt like the safest place to be.
Ms. Gavin, can you take this down, please, and pull up 10C105? If you can, play from 23 seconds to 30 seconds. Just pausing, I'm sorry, before we start. Ms. Ventura, do you recognize what's depicted on the screen in 10C105?
Yes, that's the opposite side of the hallway at the Intercontinental.
Okay, Ms. Gavin, can we play to 30 seconds, please? And was Sean visible in that clip?
Yes.
Where was he?
He was dragging me around the corner.
Ms. Gavin, if you can take that down and pull up 10C103 again, please, and where we are at is 56 seconds. Ms. Ventura, taking it back to your testimony about staying on the ground, were there occasions when you tried to fight back when Sean hit you?
No.
Ms. Gavin, can we please play from 143 to 146? Okay, sorry, just one moment. I gave you the wrong timestamp. Can you play from 56 seconds to 132? Starting from where you're at the corner, pausing you there. Ms. Ventura, what are you doing in the corner?
I picked up the hotel phone that was on the floor.
Okay, and where's Sean?
He's standing, facing me.
And what does he have in his hands?
My purse and my overnight bag.
Okay, if we can take, Ms. Gavin, if we can take that down, pull up 10C104. If you can play from 140 to 150, which direction is Sean walking?
He's walking back toward the room we're staying in.
What does he have in his hands?
All of my bags.
And if you can play to 208, which direction is Sean walking?
Back toward the elevator bank.
And where are you at this point?
I think I'm off. I don't know. I'm off camera, or I'm either on the phone, or I don't know. So I went down the other hallway as well.
Are you still in the elevator bank?
I think I'm still in the elevator bank. I'm probably about to get on the phone.
What does Sean have in his hands?
I don't see anything in his hands.
Your bags are no longer in his hands, is that right?
No, it looks like he dropped them off.
Your Honor, it's 5 o'clock. Should we?
Are you at a good stopping place?
I'm at a good stopping place.
All right. Thank you, members of the jury. I'll give you the same instructions that I gave you yesterday. Do not talk to each other about the case. Do not look up anything about this case. One just specific point about that. If you have notifications on any of your devices, please turn those off, especially if they are from any news organization of any kind. Do not talk to anybody about the case, and no one here should be talking to any of the jurors directly or indirectly. With that, have a great evening. We'll see you here tomorrow morning at 9:15. All rise.